Okay, now I remember why I haven't reviewed this toy before, because this is the only Optimus Prime that requires being wound up to transform. And that, in itself, is enough of a joke to be in the opening. Just for curiosity's sake, I decided to go back through the old video archive and find if there were any Transformers animated toys that I had neglected over the years, and oh, not a whole lot, maybe, except the main Optimus Prime. Jeez, what is wrong with me? Yeah, I looked over, even through, like, old Rush reviews and things, I had never talked about this figure. Why? So, in an effort to actually finish off animated as well as talk some more Optimus Prime, let's talk about the Voyager version of animated Optimus Prime. As you can see here, he is done up in a very stylized version of his classic flat-nosed semi-truck. Futuristic, but old school at the same time. Animated had a very interesting aesthetic, didn't it? And you can see that here. He has a lot of hard lines to him going all around, trying to keep him very sharp, very streamlined. He definitely is going for something of a more, I don't know, maybe like almost retro futuristic, if that makes any kind of sense. Because like futuristic designs these days don't really lean towards this anymore. So let's see what we have here. He is cast in a whole bunch of different plastics. We have red, we have black, we have gray, we have blue. Animated did rely heavily on molded plastic for its coloring, but it was not shy of painting either. You can see a massive amount of black paint, as well as a little bit of blue here along the sides to create this kind of illusion of his truck mode continuing on toward the back. It's a passable illusion, but, you know, it's a little bit awkward. We'll deal with that here in a bit. He also has translucent blue, which we can see on the light bar overhead, because this semi-truck is an emergency vehicle, apparently. And we have it in the windshields, where there's a lot of very cool circuitry details showing through. I really like when they do reverse molding, where all the molded details on the insides. It kind of gives it this cool layered look. Now, of course, the vehicle mode itself is not, by any stretch of the means, perfect. We do have some gappage here. The front bumper does not completely fit flush to the actual toy. And then we have plenty of gaps here because the back side of this toy is merely a facade. See, he's supposed to be some kind of fire truck, but in an effort to make him a little bit more G1-ish, he has the option of looking like a semi instead. Not that this looks like any kind of fire truck I've ever seen, just because they put a water cannon on the back. The water cannon can rotate around while it's plugged in this way, just in case you do actually want to attempt to use this as a water truck. We're going to talk a little bit more about this stuff later on, but for now, I'm going to go ahead and make it lose all of its panels. Luckily, it all snaps back in, but we'll have to deal with that before we get to robot mode. But yeah, you can see you can pull that straight off, assuming you don't make all the panels fly off. And it has much more of a classic Optimus Prime look, with a bunch of blue in the back, forming a more normal-looking semi-truck, who still has a lot of sweeping areas, with both sharp lines and smooth lines going all over the place. Interesting aesthetics all around. Definitely say that about animated. So, beyond that, he rolls quite well. Wheels are pinned in, and he's quite heavy, especially in the front, so plenty of rolling fun to be had. So, transformations, because we need to get this guy into robot mode and see what he can really do. This is, I think, why I never actually transformed this toy before, because he's a little bit on the strange side. So, for starters, go ahead and and I'm repairing the axe. I need to go ahead and pull this back so we can get the maximum effect here. So we're going to go ahead and start transformation. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't get the arms out first. Well, first we need to undo the bumper and fold that down. It will fold out here in a bit, like so. Unclip there, and we can go ahead and fold that to the sides. Now, the front, or the upper half rather, transforms very much like G1 Optimus Prime. Arms come out the sides, all the shoulder stuff comes out the back side here. It all tabs in very securely. Hands, unlike G1 Prime, actually flip out. So we have hands that don't get lost or anything, which is always a plus on Optimus Primes. Going to go ahead and flip the head out here. Now, toward the back. We undo the legs here. I'm going to go ahead and extend these so we have a maximum effect here in a minute. Flip up the feet. Rear wheels have to flip in. These are spring-loaded, by the way, so when you flip them back into vehicle mode, they really like to spring into place themselves, and then you have to tab them in securely. So I don't know why the point of the springs, because they still have to connect manually. Go ahead and fold that down so we have plenty of room. All right. And now here's the thing. So along his lower back there, you're going to see that little switch there in the back. The switch activates his, I guess, an auto-morph. But apparently it wasn't enough to just do an auto-morph on this guy. They had to give it a little bit of flair. So if I go ahead and hit that button, and rely on 10-year-old springs to do the work. Come on. They used to do much better than that. So yeah, it has this weird gimmick where the legs spin. When you flip that, the legs are supposed to spin down into position for robot mode. They're supposed to spin around as they were folding out into the hips. It was a weird little gimmick. Like, my Optimus Prime is a wind-up toy for no reason. I don't know why. So, okay, that was a little bit of a bummer. Man, I was really hoping that would be more effective than it was, because it's silly. It's goofball. Okay, let's just go ahead and finish it. We'll go ahead and close up the back panel, fold down the light bar, and situate Optimus Prime there on the review stage in his full robot form. Looking very G1, very stylized G1, which is the animated Prime thing. It's the animated thing in general. But what we do get is a surprisingly animation-accurate looking robot mode. This is where animated engineering was pretty genius. So, taking a look at the head, it is very much what you'd expect out of animated Optimus Prime. The chin is absolutely massive compared to where his eyes and face are. He doesn't have a whole lot of room for his brain because all of the head bulk sunk down into the lower half. So he does have the classic look going here, the big faceplate up. But if you want to change that, there is a lever in the back that lets him expose his actual face, which is how we saw him most of the time in the show. Now, I'm always going to prefer the faceplate over this look, but I like that they have the option as a simple little flip-down gimmick. It's not a bad idea to have. Though, he does have this weird thing where if he's looking straight forward, the chin can actually go down farther, and that little bit of chin down there pokes into his chest. This prevents his head from turning, so you actually have to keep it a little bit higher up than that if you actually want his head to be able to rotate. That's a little weird. So, let's see. Offhand, we do have what seems to be a very G1 faithful Optimus Prime. There's a few things, the blue the blue extends a little bit further than it normally did, and there's a little bit more black, but for the most part, the colors are where you'd think they'd be. The grille and the chest are done up from the front of the vehicle without any kind of cheating. He even has the silver striping on his shoulders. The only thing missing, strangely enough, no Autobot symbol. It's kind of bizarre. Like, you'd expect one, like, right there on the shoulder, as per tradition. It's even made sure, like, this side actually has a little indent where a little one might have gone, but they left it off here. And it seems like a big broad area for an Autobot logo that is not there. It's a shame. But I guess they were in more disguise oriented and animated, so there's that at least. But he does look good. He cleans up very nicely. A lot of his vehicle mode bulk does not get in the way, mostly because we pulled some of it off. And he creates a very cool, very kind of anime-esque vestige, which I guess was the idea. So I'm going to go ahead and go into articulation. We will save gimmicky and weaponry stuff for last. Like mentioned, his head does rotate around, provided that his face is not currently falling off. His shoulders have a bit of interesting hinge work going on here to make sure they can go outward and forward. providing nearly universal motion to that. Full rotation there at the bicep. You have an elbow joint that bends up 90, and you also have a little bit of an inward bend, should you want it. Nothing at the wrist due to how it transforms and locks into place. The waist does work in spite of the spinny gimmick, though that spinny gimmick always makes me hesitant to actually use the waist a little bit, but seems to be fine. It's held up 10 years or more so far. We have thighs that work very well. Universal jointage all around, exceptionally well done. We have knees, which are not quite to the 90. That's a little bit weird, but hey, they do rotate anyway. And a slant there at the foot, so he stands more naturally, but no ankle tilting. So he's an action hero Optimus Prime. He was a younger sort. He wasn't the general of the Autobot army. He was more of a young commander up and coming. So I can kind of see why he has the aesthetic and look he has. And I would expect a higher level of articulation out of action hero Optimus. Though the limiting to his knees does kind of hurt that. He can only get so extreme in his posing. However, he does come with weaponry, so we can at least bulk him out that way. We'll go ahead and take that chunk that we took off, now that is back into one piece. And we'll go ahead and remove this, which is actually his main gun, as well as a water squirter. This is a gimmick you really don't see anymore because parents don't want their kids spraying water all over the house, and kids don't want to get their toys wet. I can see logic behind both. But yeah, fill it in there, close up the plug, plenty of water, and then to squirt, we just pull the nozzle back and it fires a stream of water. You don't ever see these anymore. This is kind of a classic gimmick for Transformers. And we'll go ahead and mount it in his left hand. It's got a long handle because his hands do have a weird kind of assembly to them. And strangely enough, he has to hold it at a weird angle in order to point forward. I'm not sure why it's angled that way. It just is. I mean, it's to compensate for the vehicle mode's positioning, but you could have angled the handle to not do that. This one doesn't have that problem. Its handle is nice and long. And then we can fold this out to create some semblance of the axe he had in the show. Now, he had a few forms of the axe. There's one, the one with the deluxe is a little bit more accurate because it's a one-sided axe. This one is obviously way bigger. And it doesn't look like it's like a big Energon thing with a big rocket on the back, which I thought was an awesome idea for like a Cybertronian axe. Just put a rocket on it so I don't have to swing it that hard and it still cleaves things in half. That was a cool idea. But at least he has some kind of axe weapon, even if it isn't entirely accurate or accurate at all. It's the idea that counts, and at least it gives him an interesting accessory. So that is animated Optimus Prime. He is a fairly solid toy. The articulation range could be better here and there, and obviously his main gimmick did not age well, but it's not really a gimmick I want to age well, because it's really silly to be on a mainline Transformer. The look is great, the transformation's fun, and he definitely has the look of Transformers animated that is so unique and special, and still a very well-remembered series for me and a lot of other Transformer fans. So if you track it down, if you want to go pick one up, this is still a worthy Transformer to own, though you might want to make sure that the weird spinny transformation gimmick hasn't affected anything too bad. I can imagine that going wrong in more than one way.
Wow.